When you go for your sim check, you want to do well. You want to demonstrate your best professional abilities, that you are competent, diligent, and cool under pressure. And you know what? Surprisingly, what you do within the first minute after the simulated failure starts has a major effect on how you will handle the entire scenario and therefore greatly influences your overall performance. This minute is what I like to call your sim check's golden minute, when you can demonstrate professional maturity and the ability to calmly fly, navigate, communicate, and think before diving into the econ, also known as applying the Airbus golden rules. And in this video briefing, you will learn one way to articulate and operationalize the Airbus golden rules in any situation. Furthermore, you will understand why, during times of stress, you may experience a tendency to rush, which highlights the importance of slowing down. Additionally, we will identify two fundamental sets of skills that underpin the Airbus golden rules and are essential for building your confidence that during any sim check, the scenario doesn't matter, as you know that you can ensure an immediate safe flight path in any situation with no stress and then calmly work your way through a rational and structured decision-making process. Before continuing, make sure you watch the previous video, part 1 in this series, to fully understand the concepts of the 99%, the chimp and the Einstein brains, the FFF response, the reasons behind articulating the Airbus golden rules as a software update, high-level, slow memory item, and how the content discussed in this video briefing corresponds to the first two steps of the managing the 99% structure, which is also your sim check's golden minute. Your golden minute performance sets the tone for the rest of the simulator check, so investing some time and effort into refining your performance during this critical time frame is well worth it. My name is Cristian Mandu. I am an A320 instructor and examiner, a CRM trainer, and I am passionate about practical human factors in aviation. On this channel, I aim to share my A320 sim instructor and examiner experience and give you a few simple tips and tricks for specific simulator challenges anchored on a practical approach to understanding and controlling your mental capacity, abilities, and limitations under stress, what can broadly be referred to as human factors and resilience development. This proposed software update solution discussed in this video series is actually a 5-step failure management structure. You can download your free summary of this structure, a document called Managing the 99% Summary, at a320captain.com. You can tailor it in accordance with your company's SOPs and use it to practice your failure management structure before your next sim check. In this video, we'll delve into the first two steps, probably the most important steps immediately following the onset of the simulated failure. We will discuss what to do, why, and how to perform all the necessary actions to ensure an immediate safe flight path, and then select a relevant procedure. It takes less than a minute to do that, and this is what I call your sim check's golden minute. Let's articulate and break down the Airbus golden rules and then identify the essential skills that you need to remain cool under pressure during any situation. Step 1. Fly, navigate, and communicate, also commonly referred to as airmanship, common sense, or the Airbus golden rules. The fly, navigate, communicate structure is universally applicable. Fly generally involves using the primary fly display as the primary reference. Nav relies on the navigation display, and clear communication fosters shared situational awareness. In this video, I will address some fly, navigate, communicate aspects that I often observe pilots struggle with during their sim checks. For a better understanding, we'll discuss each one individually in a simplified context. Examples will be in a straight and level flight. In video number 4 in this series, we'll explore practicing the entire failure management structure in complex, noisy situations, similar to what you would normally expect during a simulator check. Fly. What does it mean? When I ask this question during the sim briefings, pilots often mention attitude, pitch, power, and configuration. All good, but let's organize these elements in a coherent and logical order. Firstly, if you have an Airbus memory item for the situation, apply it now. If no memory item applies, then consider this. When encountering a complex failure with overflowing ECAM messages and multiple oral alarms, what do you care most about? Is it the systems you have lost or the systems that are still working, which you can use to achieve a safe flight path? Of course, what systems are still working? And how do you know what systems are still working? Well, that's very easy. Look at your FMA: autopilot, flight director, and auto thrust. What do you do if you have lost your autopilot? Well, say, I have control, fly the aircraft manually on the intended flight path and try to re-engage the autopilot. If it doesn't work, well, try the other one. If both attempts failed, then the task sharing on the flight deck will change, as one pilot will have to fly manually. What about if you lose your flight directors? Try to re-engage them. If that doesn't resolve the issue, you need to do something. What? Well, you need to request bird on, set this or that track. What do you do if you have lost the auto thrust? Easy. Say, I have control, manually take over the thrust levers to remove thrust lock, then try to re-engage your auto thrust. If it doesn't work and if the other autopilot is available, engage the other autopilot and try to re-engage the auto thrust again. Thrust lock, I have control.
You have control.
Manual thrust. Let's try to re-engage. Speed, auto thrust. It doesn't work. Let's try the other autopilot. Autopilot 1, AP1, auto thrust, speed, auto thrust, levers back to climb, and we have speed, AP1, auto thrust.
Check.
Use the FMA diligently every time. Make a memory item out of it. Recover your autopilot, flight director, and or auto thrust to reduce your workload. It's an easy process. It's all indicated on your PFD and it's free of charge. Configuration. It is very important to practice checking that your aircraft's configuration matches the intended state. After an unexpected discontinued approach or a spurious GPWS pull-up warning during the final approach in IMC, I often observe pilots continuing to fly with the gear down and flaps extended. These surprising situations result in a sudden increase in workload, also increasing your stress levels and reducing mental capacity. Unless practiced as a memory item, it's very easy to overlook the aircraft's configuration in the dynamic context of the sim scenario. Last but not least, within the fly aspect, I highly recommend checking your flight control law. Are you in normal law or in alternate law? If you find yourself in alternate law and you need to make an immediate landing in direct law, there are specific considerations to keep in mind when prepared for a direct low landing, such as flaps 3 and delta VREF. This information can be found on your status page and it's important. Check it carefully. Navigate. When it comes to navigation, understanding your MSA and being aware of your surroundings are implicit in this discussion. Additionally, navigating an A320 in an abnormal or emergency state could be the subject of an entire PhD. However, in real-life scenarios, stress levels can rise and mental capacity can significantly decrease. Let's approach that initial navigation decision in a way that can be operationalized even in the worst-case scenario with significantly reduced mental capacity. How about this? Do you have land-sub or not? Any color. If you do, unless you are very close to your intended destination, you might need to divert somewhere. You might need to consider leveling off, starting descent, requesting radar vectors, or a holding pattern. However, if you do not have a land-sub, it might be easier to initially continue as cleared. It is easier for you to stay on the SID, and it is easier for the ATC to know that you are on the SID. Communicate. Who needs to know that you have lost your auto thrust? Cabin crew? No, they don't care. ATC? No, they don't need to know either. Your colleague, the other pilot, needs to know, and you must communicate it clearly to avoid any ambiguity. Always verbalize your actions and ensure that your colleague is following the situation and understands the aircraft status. By doing so, you established a shared situational awareness on the flight deck, and that is something really important to demonstrate during a sim check. Who needs to know that due to an engine failure at V-rotate, you need to follow a special engine out routing and cannot stay on the SID? Your pilot colleague for sure. Cabin crew? No, they don't need to know. ATC? Yes, they need to know, and if possible, communicate your plan with them before deviating from the clearance. Share your situational awareness, that projection dimension. To avoid surprising the ATC, as you know what surprise can do to human performance, if possible, tell your ATC colleagues your intentions before deviating from the clearance. Who needs to be informed when you need to immediately return after takeoff and you cannot vacate the runway due to a time-critical situation? Everyone needs to be aware. This includes your pilot colleague, air traffic control, cabin crew, and the passenger. It is crucial to communicate with each relevant party and provide them with the necessary information. Share your situational awareness with all the actors involved. You are all part of the same movie, and you are the first to know that the script has changed. Communicate it clearly. Before moving on to step number 2, let me address 2 common struggles that I observe in the simulator. First, in certain situations, it may be necessary to declare a pan-pan or a mayday. It's important to be aware of the following. When you make such a declaration, air traffic control will follow their established procedures and checklists. They may inquire about the nature of the problem, endurance, fuel on board, souls on board, POBs, presence of dangerous goods, and what are your intentions. This information allows them to coordinate with other services, such as fire trucks and ambulances, to provide you with a better assistance. However, the ATC should not insist on gathering this information when your workload is high. If they do, you can politely ask them to stand by, but once your workload allows, remember to come back to them and give them the information they require. Then, in the sim, many pilots struggle with endurance calculations. During high workload and stress with reduced mental capacity, complex fuel calculations can be overwhelming. Pilots often find it confusing to assess information from the QRH and the actual fuel flow indications. In a separate video, I will give you a few simple tips for quick endurance calculation with and without fuel penalties. Once you have ensured a safe flight path by utilizing available automation, it's time to move on to step number 2. Think, TNT. Determine whether the situation at hand is technical or non-technical and select the relevant procedure. If it's a technical situation, before diving into the ECAM, ask yourself a fundamental question. Anything to do before ECAM? What could it be? An OEB consulting a paper checklist for scenarios like unreliable airspeed or fuel leaks, or considering any actions related to system knowledge. I don't know if it ever happened to you, but it happened to me quite a few times when, after takeoff, with packs off as standard in my airline, we receive an ECAM message stating Air Pack 1+2 off. In such cases, we utilize our system's knowledge reactively to turn on the packs after takeoff. However, it's essential to employ system knowledge proactively as well. In my previous video, I gave an example of an emergency electrical sim scenario where it is better if CM1 takes over the controls and lowers the level of automation proactively before degrading the aircraft. Let's see this short clip again.
Cam actions.
If I switch off the IDG2, we enter emergency electrical configuration and we're going to lose all the automation going into alternate low. How about I take controls and we disengage the automation before they come?
Check. Okay.
I have controls, I have communication.
You have controls and communication.
Autopilot off, flight directors off, bird on, auto thrust off.
Check.
ECAM actions.
Elect IDG2 oil overheat. IDG2 off. Confirm IDG2.
I confirm. Mayday, mayday, mayday. If it's a non-technical situation, it could involve weather conditions like significant turbulence or thunderstorms, where you start by turning on that seatbelt sign and considering a heading change to avoid or navigate around the weather. Another non-technical situation could be a wind shear encounter, which requires following the memory item. Additionally, a non-technical situation might involve a medical situation. In such cases, careful coordination with various services is necessary, such as finding a doctor on board or arranging for stairs and an ambulance after landing. Share your situational awareness, what is going on and how things will develop in the future. Inform who needs to know, tell them what they need to know. To make it really easy, think chronologically, visualize the chain of events step by step and verbalize your needs and intentions clearly. If it's a pilot incapacitation scenario, ensure a safe flight path. Fly, navigate and communicate your mayday. Then, request cabin crew to secure your colleague and look for a doctor on board. Let's take this situation beyond the immediate actions, just to emphasize the importance of sharing your situational awareness so everyone involved knows what's going on and how the situation will unfold in the near future, landing and after landing. Provide ATC with information about the case, gender, approximate age, symptoms, and any treatment administered. Also tell them the person's locations on the aircraft. ATC will relay this information with the ambulance to help the doctors enhance their situational awareness about the case. Also tell ATC what you need and how do you want things to happen during and after landing, so they coordinate all the services for you in due time. For example, if you are landing in Abu Dhabi on runway 31 right and you plan to vacate via Alpha 8, there are no parking stands nearby. You might not want to waste time taxiing to the other side of the airport, as time can be really critical for your incapacitated colleague. In this case, you can tell the ATC something like, after landing, we will stop on taxiway Alpha 8 and shut down the engines. We need stairs at the front left door so the doctors can come on board. When the incapacitated colleague has been taken care of, we want to close the doors and be towed to our final parking position, so could you please arrange a tow truck for us? Also, tell cabin crew that after you stop on the taxiway and shut down the engines, you will cycle the seatbelt sign and maybe if you don't have time for a passenger announcement, ask your senior to inform the passengers to remain seated until you reach the final parking position and switch the seatbelt sign off. During a medical or pilot incapacitation scenario, you need to demonstrate effective coordination of services. The earlier you initiate this coordination during the flight, the more time you provide for your colleagues on the ground to prepare and better assist you. As a pilot, it is your task to enhance the situational awareness of all the parties involved. Communicate what is going on and how the situation projects into the near future, what you need, when, and how. We will discuss more about this coordination and assigning aspects during the next video, part 3 in this series, where we address steps 3, 4, and 5, ending with a DODAR or foredeck. How long do you think it takes to apply steps 1 and 2? Applying these steps, which involves flying, navigating, and communicating, can typically be accomplished within a short time frame. In straightforward cases, it may take as little as 30 seconds. Even in more complex situations, such as LGCIU 1+2 fold, it can be achieved in under 1 minute. I have control.
You have control.
I hold the autopilot, flight directors, and auto thrust. Autopilot is off.
Check.
Auto thrust coming off. And I'm maintaining heading 100, 5,000 feet, speed 250.
Check.
Try to re-engage autopilot 1.
Doesn't work.
Try autopilot 2.
Also doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Okay. Reset flight directives. It doesn't work. Flight directives off.
Flight directors off.
Bird on.
Bird on.
Set track 100.
Track 100 set.
And try to engage auto thrust.
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work. So I'm flying fully manually. I have control, I have communication, become actions please.
Become actions. Auto flight. Autopilot.
As an examiner, that's when I pay particular attention to a pilot's performance. During this golden minute, your immediate response to the failure showcases your level of professional maturity. It demonstrates your ability to effectively handle the situation by prioritizing the control of the aircraft, ensuring a safe flight path, and communicating clearly with who needs to know, and thinking before delving into the ECAM or other detailed procedure. The big challenge in applying steps 1 and 2 is to slow down. Rushing while intending to fly, navigate, and communicate makes the situation more difficult. Adrenaline in the brain can alter time perception, leading to a normal human reaction of rushing under sudden stress. Okay, I will tell you how I learned how to slow down when I was a kid. I started playing the violin at the age of 6, and soon after that I had to go on stage and perform publicly in this kind of music school organized children concerts. Let's say I had to play a piece of music, something simple like this. What happened when I was on stage and I was nervous, my palms were sweating and I had this feeling of unease. My music sounded completely different. It was chaotic. It was like this. It was too fast and out of control. I learned that when I'm stressed, my time perception changes and I have to deliberately slow down. And if in my ears on stage the music sounds like this, in the ears of the audience it sounds like this. Slowing down is a deliberate process. Under stress, the time perception changes. So when you are in the sim and maybe your palms are sweating and you have that feeling of unease, you might be very stressed and start rushing and precipitating. Take a deep breath and slow down. Your brain might be doing the adrenaline dance and your time perception might play some tricks. Slow down. Embrace the Airbus golden rules and perform steps 1 and 2 as a high-level, slow memory item. Let's now look at the 2 fundamental sets of skills that would enable you to fly and navigate the aircraft in any situations, even without any automation, with no stress. What would be the 1 fundamental skill that would enable you to remain cool when all the automation fails? During simulator sessions, it is obvious that many pilots lack confidence in their manual flying skills. It is essential to address this issue and understand how we can reverse this trend. Let's examine these aspects and discuss the steps required to regain confidence in manual flying. In terms of the worst-case scenario involving a loss of automation, imagine a situation where you experience a complete loss of autopilot, flight directors, and auto thrust. This can further deteriorate in alternate low or direct low. It could potentially worsen with the additional challenges of an inoperative engine, unreliable speed, or both. However, the key point to remember is that none of these factors significantly matter if you are confident about your pitch and power flying skills. Automation is just a bonus. If it works, fine, use it. However, when the automation fails, you will need to fly manually, and the only way to reduce your stress levels during any scenario that involves a loss of automation is to keep your manual flying skills sharp. But how can we keep our pitch and power skills sharp if the airline we work for does not allow flying without automation? Well, I suggest to start by increasing our awareness of the pitch and power settings during regular operation. When flying with the autopilot and auto thrust, normal flight, how often do you monitor the pitch and N1 values? By simply directing your attention behind the flight directors and glancing at the N1 values, you can observe the correlation between pitch and power for some commonly used speed configuration settings. Take note of these parameters and aim to make a rough average. Precise values are not necessary. For instance, on the 320 CEO with IAE engines, to maintain level flight at 250 knots, my easy-to-remember average is 360. This represents about 3 degrees pitch and about 60% N1. While these values are not absolutely precise, I can use them as good enough initial reference that I can slightly adjust as needed. When it comes to the green dot speed, my easy to remember reference is 555. Check it out next time you fly. Here are a few things that you can start monitoring during regular operations. What are your average pitch and power settings for F1S speed and F2 160 knots in level flight? How much power do you need to add in two engines when you select the gear down to maintain F2 160 in level flight around 3000 feet, what is commonly a platform altitude? What pitch and power values do you expect for a flaps 3 or a flaps full configuration on a standard 3 degrees glide? I will create a dedicated video that focuses on observing, learning and practicing pitch and power values with all engines operating and single engine situations. It's all about developing a scan flow technique, and therefore you don't need a full flight simulator or a real aircraft to practice it. You can conveniently do it at home using your computer. I would like to hear your thoughts in the comments below about which flight simulator you consider the most accurate and suitable for practicing pitch and power skills. Please share your recommendations and experiences. I will share with you what I use in video number 4 in this series, when I will tell you how to practice the entire management structure for the 99% using simple and easily accessible home setups. What would be the one fundamental skill that would enable you to remain cool when all the FMS-based navigation fails? Once again, I have noticed that many pilots encounter difficulties with navigation when their FMS navigation capabilities are compromised. With the rising occurrence of GPS jamming around the world, I believe that relying on conventional navigation is a necessity. Having the skills to fly the needles is a fundamental requirement for any competent pilot. But how can you practice conventional navigation when most of our airline operations are based on RNAV? Well, the truth is it can be challenging. However, there are many apps that you can use to practice. The app that I personally use is called VOR Tracker. It allows me to practice interceptions, holding patterns, DME arcs, and navigate using various instrument setups. Do you know any other good apps for conventional navigation? Please feel free to share them in the comments box below. Additionally, there are many great videos on YouTube that offer valuable information. For example, Captain Joe has a video titled Holding Entries in Under 10 Seconds, which provides a quick and easy thumb method for calculating holding pattern entries. It can't get any easier than a simple thumb rule. In November 2022, the FAA has published an advisory circular recommending a refocus of pilot training back to the basics, emphasizing that pilots must have the proficiency to manually fly the aircraft at any time, even for the entire flight, without the aid of automated systems, and that pilots need the confidence and cognitive capacity to accomplish and manage the tasks associated with manual flying the airplane. It is a great message for any airline's training department. I'm convinced that your airline expects you to be able to fly manually and land safely in the case of an abnormal or emergency situation. It is my hope that airline training programs will increasingly prioritize the development and maintenance of these basic flying skills, thus following the FAA recommendations and addressing what I believe to be the very foundation of a competent and confident pilot. During simulator checks, your level of proficiency in these two fundamental areas directly impact your stress levels and consequently your overall performance. Therefore, it is in your best interest and your responsibility to keep your manual flying skills sharp, pretty much the same way it is your responsibility to get sufficient rest before an early morning duty. In the upcoming video, part 3 in this series, we will look at steps 3, 4 and 5 from the failure management structure. We will cover procedure application, updating situational awareness, and making rational decisions using frameworks like DODAR and FORDEC. And in the video after that, number 4 in the series, I will tell you how to practice the entire management structure for the 99% using simple and easily accessible home setups. If you find this information valuable, consider liking the video. Subscribe and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated on new content. Feel free to share this video with your friends and colleagues who may benefit from it. Your feedback is highly appreciated, so please use the comment section below to share your thoughts, ask questions, or suggest topics you would like me to cover in future videos. Thank you for watching. I wish you many sim checks with no stress and safe flights.